JC here from Toy News International, and today I'm coming at you with another news video. I thought with the new Justice League trailer that hit this morning, it would be a good time to talk about the new S.H. Figuarts and MAFEX figures, Justice League movie figures that were on display this past weekend at New York Comic Con, or I should say this weekend. This is the last day of the convention, but definitely the convention is winding down. But both Tomasi Nations and Mediacom had a bunch of their Justice League movie figures, 6-inch figures, on display. Now, we'd seen these before. Some of these have actually already been put up for solicitations at places like Big Bad Toy Store. Some of them have not yet, but we saw like at San Diego Comic Con and such. I believe all of these figures were also on display there. But again, I thought it would just be nice, you know, with the new trailer and everything, to talk about that. But before we get into that, I also wanted to touch upon a review I did yesterday for this Black Series Last Jedi Elite Praetorian Guard figure from Hasbro. So in the comments section, some of you were talking about being able to bend the elbow here, where in my video I'd said you really don't get much bending movement, which you really don't. But if you want to work with it a little bit, maybe if you take a hairdryer and loosen up, the problem with this figure is that they covered up basically the elbow joints with these armor pieces, which are actually just made out of a rubber type material, but they completely cover the elbow joint, and there's not much give there in the elbow joint. So again, you know, it basically restricts the movement there when you're trying and bending it. You get rotation is fine there. You get rotation there. It's a single hinge joint, but again, the bending is just not very good on this figure. Now, some of you said, well, yeah, you did get more bending out of it, and you know, you can see here I've gotten a little bit more as I've been kind of fooling with it over the past 24 hours. I've been able to get a little more bending out of it, but not too much. It still really doesn't bend very good. And also, when you're forcing it like that, you've got two problems. First of all, you're stretching out this rubber piece, so the more you do that, the funnier it kind of looks on the figure. You can see it basically, on both sides, it's now kind of, that rubber is kind of warped, so it doesn't look as good. And then you're also putting a lot of pressure on the actual joint when you're basically forcing it to try and bend against that rubber piece. And so I've had some of you contact me and say that when you were trying it, you actually snapped the elbow off when you did that. So definitely, if you're going to try and force it like that, I would recommend caution, because you know, if you keep doing it, especially over time, you might end up finding that, you know, you break the figure. Now, one thing I've been thinking about trying, I haven't actually done it yet, so I don't want to necessarily say it'll work, but it's just trying to maybe cut a little slit here on the top and the bottom, and I think that would probably open it up and give you more posability there with the elbow. Now, I'm not sure how it will look with little slits cut into it, but so that's why I haven't actually done it yet. But that's probably the best workaround. Again, you might take a hairdryer and just try and stretch that rubber out a little bit. Yeah, that'll give you probably a little more bending, but not what I would definitely call great bending there at the elbow. So anyway, because some of you had asked about it in the video and everything, I wanted to touch base on that. Okay, so getting back to the Justice League, as I mentioned before, there was a new trailer this morning, and I thought it was pretty good overall. I think the thing I like best about these trailers, and not just this one, but all the trailers we've seen so far, is I'm liking the character interaction between the different members of the Justice League. I would have liked to have seen Superman more in this trailer. I know it's kind of a, you know, is he alive? But I mean, we all know that he's going to be in the movie and that he's still alive, so it's not like a secret or anything. So I definitely would have liked to have seen a little more in the way of Superman in this trailer. But otherwise, I thought it was a pretty solid trailer. And, you know, Wonder Woman was good. I wasn't that big of a fan of Batman versus Superman, but I think each movie, you know, starting with Batman versus Superman, has gotten a little bit better. I thought Suicide Squad was a little bit better than Batman versus Superman. I thought Wonder Woman was really good, and so I've got high hopes and keeping my fingers crossed that Justice League is going to be a good movie as well. But anyway, because of the new trailer this morning, I wanted to talk about the new S.H. Figuarts and MAFEX figures that were on display at New York Comic Con this weekend. Both of them we had seen, you know, pretty much all these figures, I think, at San Diego, but, you know, we're getting new looks at them. And so I really just wanted to kind of go over those. Now, I'm curious to hear from you guys, which do you actually prefer? Do you prefer the MAFEX ones, or do you prefer the S.H. Figuarts? I tend to lean a little more towards S.H. Figuarts in general. I got the MAFEX Batman versus Superman, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman figures. And I gotta say, they were okay, but I wasn't super impressed with them based on their price and everything. So I'm kind of hoping that the S.H. Figuarts ones, which we didn't really get Batman versus Superman versions of, are a little bit better than that. Now, I will say that the MAFEX, these new MAFEX ones, look like they've improved a little bit over the Batman versus Superman versions, like with Superman's cape and such. And the MAFEX ones have a little bit advantage with some of them, like the Flash comes with an alternate unmasked head sculpt, which is cool, which you don't get with the S.H. Figuarts version. But still, overall, if I had to choose, at least right now, I probably would go towards the S.H. Figuarts. But definitely let me know in the comments section below which side you're leaning towards. But anyway, starting with S.H. Figuarts, here's a look at the new Wonder Woman figure. And I think overall this is looking pretty solid. I like the metallic paints that they're using on it. I like the texturing on her skirt piece. The lasso is looking pretty good there, and overall head sculpt, while maybe not 100% to gal, I think is probably pretty good. It certainly doesn't look bad to me. Now, I got to give Mattel credit on their Wonder Woman figure, that Toys R Us exclusive one that they re-released as the Justice League version. I actually think is a pretty good head sculpt in its own right. But again, I think this one's pretty solid overall. I believe accessory-wise, you're going to see things like multiple pairs of hands, the sword, the shield, the lasso. So, pretty much what we've seen with previous Wonder Woman figures is what we're getting with this one. Next up, we've got Aquaman, and the thing I like best about this one is the sculpting detail on the armor. I think they've done a nice job with that. Head sculpt is pretty solid, and then you've got the trident. So this one, I think both versions are looking pretty good, but definitely like that sculpting detail they got going with the armor on this figure. Batman, we're getting a regular Batman version as opposed to tactical suit. I definitely would rather have seen the tactical suit version done, which they may eventually get around to doing. But as it is, I think this is a pretty solid figure. I like the sculpting detail on his bat symbol on his chest there. I like how they got the padding sculpted on his abs as well. I think that looks good. The gloves look a little bit different than what we saw with Batman versus Superman, at least from what I recall. Head sculpt's looking pretty good. Hard to say that it really looks like Ben Affleck with the mask on and everything, but I think it looks pretty true to how Batman looks in the movie. He's got the soft goods cape, which is definitely oversized, which is probably the thing I like least about these figures. I definitely didn't like it with the MAFEX one, the Batman versus Superman MAFEX one. It just kind of gets in the way. I know it's somewhat movie accurate to have the oversized cape, but I'm not a fan of that in general. Superman, overall looking pretty good. I like this head sculpt. It's probably one of the better looking Superman movie head sculpts I've seen, and I like the texturing on the suit and everything. So again, with the oversized soft goods cape, which can be a pain. Now it looks like it does have the wiring in it, so at least you can probably pose it. Though that really didn't work very well with the Batman versus Superman MAFEX one, so I don't know. Again, I know it's somewhat movie accurate, but I kind of wish they would shorten the capes up a little bit on the figures. Liking the Flash, definitely love the Flash. This is probably my favorite figure of the bunch. I like the sculpting detail. I know early on a lot of you didn't like this suit, but I think the suit's kind of grown on me. I definitely like the detailing and everything with this chest symbol and the texturing there, and then up around his shoulders and everything. I think this head sculpt looks pretty good. The masked one, now again, you don't get an unmasked head sculpt with this one, which is probably the biggest disadvantage over the MAFEX version. But again, overall, as far as the figure goes, I think it's pretty solid. And then Cyborg. Cyborg is definitely, I like this Cyborg. I'm loving the detail. I mean, it looks like an actual robot body, not just like plastic, silver plastic. And I like how the red looks there in the chest area, and the head sculpt I'm loving. I love how the metal portions of the head sculpt look on this one compared to the skin portions. I think they really nailed it with this one. And this is probably my favorite of all the Cyborg figures that I've seen. Okay, now switching over to the MAFEX side, so starting with Flash. Again, this is pretty solid looking overall with the sculpting detail. Again, I probably, if I'm giving one the advantage over the other between MAFEX and Figuarts, I probably would have to go with the MAFEX just because you're getting that unmasked head. I still will probably end up getting the Figuarts version, but I'll probably end up wanting to pick this one up as well just because I want that unmasked head. The Batman, this Batman figure is looking pretty solid. It actually looks well improved over their Batman versus Superman version. It seems like they've added more texturing to the suit in general, and so it's definitely looking pretty good. Maybe even a little better than the Figuarts one. Now, I don't really like the facial expression on this figure, at least with what they had here on display. Now, I think he gets several different facial expressions, but I'm not liking this particular one they had on the figure at display here at New York Comic Con. But the overall figure is looking actually pretty good. And it looks like with this one, they're using more of it's soft goods, but instead of cloth, it looks more like that kind of leather type material. And the cape does not look like it has any wiring in it, so I don't know how well you're going to actually be able to pose the cape with this one. So that might be a little bit of a pain as well. Now with the MAFEX Superman, again, I think this is much improved looking over their Batman vs. Superman version. I'm liking how the cape is looking. I could not stand the cape on the MAFEX version. It just annoyed the crap out of me. Now maybe it's just how they have the figure posed here, but I definitely think the cape is an improvement over that previous one. And the overall suit is looking good. Now again, with this head sculpt, I'm not terribly fond of this head sculpt and the expression they've given him, but I believe you're going to probably end up getting multiple head sculpts, so hopefully one of them looks better than that one. Now here's a look at the Cyborg figure, the MAFEX version. I don't think this Cyborg figure looks as good as the S.H. Figuarts version, so I just don't think the sculpting detail in the armor is as good, and the head sculpt definitely, to me, is not as good on this one, so looks a little bit, off to me in general. So right now I'm definitely leaning more towards the S.H. Figuarts Cyborg over this MAFEX one. And then here's a look at the Wonder Woman. Now this is basically going to be, as far as I can tell, the same one as the Batman vs. Superman one, and then again for the Wonder Woman movie. So this is essentially the third time they're releasing this figure. I think it's going to have a little bit different, a different head sculpt than what we got with, it's got a second head sculpt, if I remember correctly, with the hair kind of pulled back a little bit more. So that's the big difference. But overall, I don't know if I need another MAFEX Wonder Woman figure. It doesn't look too bad. I just really don't feel like I need a third one since I got the Batman vs. Superman version and the Wonder Woman version. Okay, so that's it. Like I said before, I definitely would love to hear your guys' thoughts and which ones you're preferring more, the MAFEX ones or the S.H. Figuarts ones. Let me know in the comments section below. Also, just one quick update when it comes to S.H. Figuarts and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles line. You'll recall that they showed off, I think it was back during Toy Fair in February, maybe even as late as last year at San Diego Comic-Con. I forget where they first showed it, but they showed off a S.H. Figuarts Shredder figure, and apparently that figure is on indefinite hold. I don't know exactly why. My guess is probably sales were soft on the actual turtle figures, and so they're not moving forward with the Shredder. But they didn't say specifically that it's been canceled, but basically that it is on hold or essentially in limbo at this point. So if you were hoping to get that S.H. Figuarts version, it's not looking good. All right, so like I said, let me know what you guys think in the comments section about everything we talked about today. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Also, please hit that like button if you're so inclined and subscribe to the channel. Please hit that subscribe button down below. I'd really appreciate it. And also be sure to follow me on my Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram accounts. I have links to those in the video description as well. And until next time, guys, I will catch you later.